It was an ordinary weekend when I decided to escape the bustle of everyday life and book an Airbnb cabin in a secluded area nestled amidst the woods. This tranquil retreat promised a peaceful getaway. Eager with anticipation, I arrived early in the morning, ready to immerse myself in nature's embrace. As I explored the expansive property, marveling at its enchanting features, I couldn't help but feel a sense of calm wash over me. Later that afternoon, I settled into one of the swinging chairs on the back patio, captivated by the serene landscape that stretched out before me. Lost in the tranquility, my gaze fixated on the distant tree line. It was then that I noticed a man strolling through the woods. Initially, I assumed he was another guest, perhaps staying in one of the neighboring cabins. He wandered deeper into the forest until he disappeared from view, and I returned to relishing the serenity of my surroundings. Hours passed, and as night descended, I retreated indoors, settling in to watch a movie. My peaceful evening was abruptly interrupted by an unexpected visitor. The doorbell, an unfamiliar sound in this cabin, pierced the silence. Intrigued and somewhat cautious, I cautiously approached the front door. To my surprise, standing before me was the same man I had spotted earlier in the woods. Offering a disarming smile, he explained that he had been lost for hours and sought assistance in finding his way back to his cabin. Though a hint of unease tickled at the back of my mind, I agreed to help. Promptly closing the door, I intended to retrieve my phone for navigation. Yet, when I reopened the door, the man had vanished, leaving no trace of his presence. Puzzled, I stood in the doorway, contemplating the strangeness of the situation. My instincts urged caution, and I remained vigilant for the remainder of the night, contemplating the unsettling encounter. Surprisingly, sleep came easily, and I awoke the following morning with renewed energy. Venturing out onto the back porch, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, I relished the tranquil morning air. However, my serenity was shattered when, only moments later, my eyes locked onto an unexpected sight. The same man from the previous day, resuming his purposeful stride through the woods, following the exact path as before. Doubt clouded my mind, erasing any notion of him being merely lost. Confusion mingled with concern, and I felt compelled to share my experience with a friend. As we conversed, my heart skipped a beat, drowning out our conversation as the doorbell chimed once more. Panic surged through me as I whispered my fears to my friend, leaving the call connected as I cautiously approached the door. With a mix of annoyance and trepidation, I confronted the man once more. He repeated his tale of being lost, urging me to fetch my phone for assistance. Cold realization enveloped me. Slamming the door shut, I swiftly relayed the disturbing events to my friend, who insisted that I evacuate immediately. Agreeing wholeheartedly, I hurriedly gathered my belongings, casting apprehensive glances at the peephole to ensure the man had departed. As I loaded my bags into the car, a shiver ran down my spine when I saw him. Peering through the front window, fixated on my departure, driven by adrenaline, I hastily drove away, leaving behind the unsettling presence that had infiltrated my sanctuary. Upon my return, I felt compelled to inform the Airbnb owner of the unsettling encounter, seeking reassurance and expressing my concern. To my surprise, their response was dismissive, failing to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. I was left bewildered, grappling with unanswered questions and the lingering unease that clung to my memory. What was the man's true intent? The image of him standing in the window, mere seconds after my departure, remains etched in my mind, a chilling reminder of an encounter that still haunts me to this day. Embarking on a road trip to Denver, Colorado, I sought an affordable accommodation option just outside the city limits. With minimal research, I settled on a one-bedroom Airbnb in a nearby town. Little did I know that this decision would lead me down a path of unease and chilling encounters. After a grueling 12-hour drive that tested my endurance, I reached the outskirts of my destination. Fatigue threatened to overcome me, but the anticipation of the adventure ahead kept me going. However, as I traversed the city, my initial excitement waned, replaced by a sense of foreboding. The neighborhood surrounding the air revealed dilapidated structures, cloaked in decay and guarded by rusted fences. Suppressing my growing concerns, I focused on the immediate task at hand, the arrival at my rented abode. The Airbnb itself appeared decent, offering a semblance of comfort. Eager to ensure my safety, I promptly transferred my belongings from the car to the house. Once inside, I cautiously explored my temporary dwelling, noting the recent renovations that lent an air of care and maintenance. Temporarily settling on the living room couch, I indulged in a brief respite, immersing myself in online entertainment to unwind from the journey. The tranquility of the late-night hours was abruptly shattered by an unexpected knock at the door. Glancing at the clock, which read well past midnight, unease crept into my thoughts. I remained motionless, my instincts cautioning against answering. The knocks persisted, but eventually the unidentified visitor retreated into the night, leaving me unsettled and questioning their intent. Seeking solace in sleep, I retired to bed around 1 a.m., but a lingering sense of unease clung to my consciousness. Exhaustion battled against the nagging feeling that urged me to remain vigilant. Eventually, weariness won, and I succumbed to slumber. However, my respite was short-lived, abruptly shattered by the darkness that enveloped the room. Blinking away the remnants of sleep, I attempted to discern the time, only to be greeted by a chilling sight, an indistinct figure positioned at the foot of my bed, cast in shadow. Fear gripped me as I recoiled, retreating to a corner of the room. The faint glow from my phone illuminated eerie, glowing eyes that peered back at me. The distance between us felt insurmountable, and a paralyzing terror gripped my heart. A moment of chaos ensued as my mind struggled to process the situation. Summoning the courage, I made a desperate dash towards the bedroom door, my only means of escape. Curiously, the man made no move to impede me. His cold gaze fixated upon me as I fled the house. Once in a place of safety, I dialed 911, recounting the nightmarish encounter to the authorities. However, upon their arrival, the intruder had vanished, leaving no trace. To compound the mystery, all of my belongings had been swiftly pilfered. The police investigation yielded few leads, perplexed by the absence of signs of forced entry. While the Airbnb owner was initially dismissed as a suspect, I couldn't help but wonder if their involvement had been prematurely dismissed. Regardless, I count myself fortunate to have escaped unharmed. It is my belief that the intruder's menacing presence in my room held a sinister purpose: to silently extinguish my life before ransacking the premises. To this day, I am haunted by the chilling silence that engulfed the room. The absence of sound, save for the beating of my heart. The encounter remains etched in my memory, a chilling reminder of the thin veil that separates safety from peril, and the importance of trusting our instincts in the face of the unknown. In my late 20s, as I embarked on my journey to explore different states, seeking a potential new home, I found myself traveling alone. To cut costs on accommodations during my frequent trips, I opted for the cheapest hotels or private room listings on Airbnb. Although I had experienced uneventful stays before, one particular trip left me shaken and wary of booking private rooms again. Arriving at my destination late in the evening, after enduring flight delays, I requested a taxi to drop me off at the Airbnb I had reserved. It was already 11 p.m. when I reached the property, and I knocked on the front door, mindful of the late hour. Despite notifying the host in advance of my estimated arrival time, my knocks initially went unanswered. Faint movements inside the left side of the house indicated someone's presence, assuring me that I hadn't arrived to an empty abode. Growing impatient, I knocked louder, finally prompting the host to open the door. The man who greeted me was an older individual, tall with long gray hair and a scruffy beard. However, his stoic demeanor offered no words of welcome or acknowledgement. Introducing myself, I mentioned my name and explained that I had booked the Airbnb. The man nodded, wordlessly permitting my entry. He directed me to my room, adjacent to another bedroom on the left side of the house. After handing me a spare key, he retreated upstairs without uttering a single word. Although some hosts preferred minimal interaction, understanding their guests' desire for privacy, the complete absence of communication left me slightly unsettled. Nevertheless, I tried to make peace with the situation, acknowledging that not all hosts possessed a natural inclination for hospitality. Personally, I appreciated the independence and anonymity offered by limited interactions with the host. My room, albeit significantly smaller than anticipated, provided a bed and a nightstand with an attached bathroom, which was a welcome convenience. Following a quick shower, I retired to bed. As I lay there with my eyes closed, attempting to find sleep, the sound of footsteps upstairs disrupted the silence. The rhythmic pattern indicated that someone was pacing above me, their movement persisting for what seemed like an eternity. Eventually, the footsteps descended the stairs, drawing closer to my room. I assumed the person would stop outside my door, but to my surprise, they entered the adjacent room instead. Throughout the night, they continued their restless activities, moving about, engrossed in some unknown task. As exhaustion weighed me down, I drifted in and out of sleep, always conscious of the lingering presence next door. The morning arrived, and the house was cloaked in an eerie silence. Stepping out of my room, I discovered the host standing in the kitchen. In an attempt to foster a friendly atmosphere, I greeted him with a good morning. However, his lack of response hinted at an aversion to conversation. I decided to venture into the city to explore, but as the day unfolded, it became clear that the location didn't resonate with my expectations. As evening approached, I returned to the air, only to find the house engulfed in darkness, except for the solitary glow emanating from my room. Concerned, I began approaching my room when the door swung open abruptly, revealing the host standing inside. In a swift motion, he exited, locking the door behind him. Intrigued by his odd behavior, I knocked on his door, seeking an explanation, but he refused to open up, adding to my growing unease. Retreating into my room, I packed my belongings, uncertain whether to depart immediately or adhere to my original plan of leaving the following morning. An intuitive sense of dread compelled me to prioritize my safety over any lingering doubts. It was then that I noticed the alarming alteration made to my room. The doorknob had been replaced, with the lock now positioned on the exterior side, a disconcerting detail that sent shivers down my spine. Reacting swiftly, I swung open the door, catching a glimpse of the host, his arm outstretched, as if on the verge of either unlocking my room or imprisoning me within it. Hastily, he turned and ascended the stairs, leaving me breathless and bewildered. Without hesitation, I snatched my belongings and fled the premises, racing to the nearest street corner to hail a taxi to the airport. Safely at the airport, I contacted the authorities to report the harrowing encounter. Regrettably, my testimony alone held little weight, as the host denied the police entry into his residence. Left with a sense of powerlessness, I spent the night on an airport bench, eagerly awaiting my departure the next day. Despite the unnerving incident, I continued to utilize air for future travels, although I could never fully shake off the lingering unease associated with private room rentals. The haunting thought remains, an ephemeral delay in opening that door could have forever altered the course of my life, rendering escape an impossibility.